Hello everyone, welcome back to the literature class. In today's session, we are stepping into one of the most fascinating and intellectually rich areas of English literature, and that is, you all know, as mentioned here, literary theory post World War II. Is going to be your introduction class. Literary theories we are not going to finish in one class. Why? Because there are a lot of literary theories that we need to a separate class for all of them, all of the literary theories. But specifically, we will focus from the perspective of NTA. Okay, like we have queer theories, feminist theories, structuralism. So apart from these, there are so many. What we will get in the exam, we will analyze those in a separate videos. So this class is going to be your introduction. So do not miss the class. Do watch till end. And also I have, if any of you find difficulty in understanding what is literary theory, literary criticism and literary terms, so here is the video. You can watch this and get your confusion clear. Everything I have explained in a very simple and easiest way to make all the English literature student understand. Okay. So with this, let's start. But before starting the class, do subscribe the channel. And also you can take a membership of the channel, everybody. For the PDF notes, you can simply join the Telegram channel. So let's just begin. So let's begin. Our focus in this class is going to be not only literary theory, but the literary theory in the post-World War. Post-World War. After post-World War, what was the situation and how the theorist uses theories in the work after World War II. Okay. So after post-World War II, literary theory marks a shift from author-centric and historical interpretations to reader-oriented, linguistic and ideological readings. Okay, this thing you have to remember. If literary criticism was about judging and interpreting literature, literary theory is about understanding how I am writing and why. How and why we interpret a text in the way we do. So that is why this is the foundation that transforms a reader into a critical thinker. And that critical thinker became a critic and criticize a text, criticize a work. Okay. So this is what we are going to unfold today. So stay tuned. So post-World War, literary theory, it has been shifted from author-centric and historical interpretations to a reader-oriented, the way we know reader response theory, linguistic, how language works in literature, and ideological readings from Marxism, how ideology by another theorist we will study in post-World War II. Okay, this period emphasized critical self-reflection, deconstruction of the grand narratives, and focus on marginalities, reflecting broader socio-political changes as a Cold War, decolonization, feminism, civil rights, and globalization. These are the parts of post-World War II, the theory that was used in this specific era, specific age, okay, this specific time. The tremendous impact of this shift you can majorly seen on literary criticism. After getting all this, now the critics used them extensively to interpret a text, to analyze a writer's background, writer's text. So that is why it is mentioned here, and cultural studies also. So this shift has changed the view of both readers and writers to analyze literature today. From which perspective? A critic analyzing the text. This is what and how it started. Also, this shift, specifically post-World War II, this shift has changed the view of both readers and writers, that how they are now going to analyze all the works written around the globe. So it simply means how we interpret and analyze the meaning just by reading the text. How we find the meaning, how we define the meaning just by having a close reading of the text. That the way our new criticism writers have mentioned that Instead of focusing on the writer's background, writer's intention, or reader's intention, you should have a close reading to find the meaning, to interpret a work. Okay. So, for example, you can take here, instead of asking about the writer's, author's background, the reader interprets the text by having a close reading. They do not have been provided by anything, but now they just have to focus on what is the text is all about, and they will have to find out the meaning. Now, key themes in post-World War literary theory in the sense used was language as a medium of power, textuality over authorial intent, identity, ideology, and representation, and interdisciplinarity. Interdisciplinarities here stand for more than one discipline that we study. For example, literature, we have now philosophy, psychoanalysis, political theory. Okay, so interdisciplinary field was also included, and we started study. I hope you do have understood that what was the literary theory post World War II. Okay, it's simply you can understand that literary theory after post World War was the extensive use of theories that has been created by the theorist, and it was majorly affected literary criticism and cultural studies, because now the critics have been using all these theories to analyze and interpret a text. After that, now let me show you that how you can memorize all the literary theories. With the time period, you must remember everybody. So post-World War literary theory time period, Russian formalism, 1910s to 1930s. You can cross-check the year. It was the precursor to post-World War II theory. Influence persisted. Okay. Then second, new criticism. It was started in USA and remain and the year was 1920s to 1940s. It remained. Structuralism, 1950s to 1960s. Ferdinand de Souza. New criticism. You can remember I.A. Richards. We have Russian formalism. One name you must remember, defamiliarization, and Victor Shklovsky. New criticism. You can remember Alan Tate, John Crow, J.C. Ransom, I.A. Richards. Clint Brooks, structuralism, Ferdinand de Saussure, post-structuralism, deconstruction, Derrida, Marxist literary theory. We have Frederick Engels, Karl Marx. Marxist word itself came from the Karl Marx name. Psychoanalytic theory, you can remember Freud, Simon Freud. Then reader response theory, you can remember reader response theory. We have Stanley Fish. Reader response theory, we have Stanley Fish. Then feminist literary theory, 1960s present, we can remember Judith Butler, we can remember Virginia Woolf, Alan Shwalter, Simone de Beauvoir. Post-colonial literary theory, you can remember the name Edward Said, Homi K. Bhabha, Gayatri Chakraborty, Spivak. Then queer theory, Eve Kosofsky. Eco-criticism, Lawrence Boyle, and New Historicism, also known as cultural materialism. You can simply remember the name is Stephen Greenblatt, Raymond Williams. They were the key members of all these literary theories in the post-World War II. Okay, so this is the time period you must remember. All the time periods, who was the founder of this, and what was the name and the year, specifically to solve the specifically chronology questions and matching questions with the year. You know how much questions we get in the matching with the publication year or the time period specifically, you can remember. Now let's move on to the next. Here, after going through the time period of literary theories, key movements that was started and what were the concept introduced by in this literary theories movement, we will analyze those. Okay, so structuralism, sorry, you won't find this in chronology because it was already I have prepared this. So structuralism, 1950s to 60s, structuralism studies literature as a system of science and relationships. Remember the signifier and signified. Ferdinand de Saussure was a major writer who gave this concept, system of sign and relationship, signifier and signified. So what does it mean? It is like a language, meaning comes from structures, not isolated text. This is what he discussed. Why it started, what was the need? After World War II, theorists wanted to find patterns and universal in stories and myth, looking for order in the fractured world. You know, all of the previous video, if you have this, you will find out that in the modernist age and postmodernist age, postmodernist. postmodern. One thing, the world was very chaotic. So in this age, we study that the people, the writers were finding the meaning to live again. And in this world, they thought, the writers and the people were thinking that why they should leave the find out any meaning. Instead, they should live the way everything is running, everything is going. So they discarded their perspective, the modernist perspective, and they thought that they should adopt what the latest culture and latest situation is. So they should now live the way everything is going. This was the highlight. So why I'm telling you, because here it is a fractured world. Fractured world, if it mentions, so Cold War, First World War, Second World War, which is happened around the modernist age and post-modernist age. So fragmentation, everything, the key point you must relate to the specific age. Now structuralism, what were the key points that they have given us? They told us that meaning arises from structure, that means binary oppositions in the sense we do opposite word, all the words have opposite word and then both have different meaning. So binary oppositions, for example, you can understand good versus evil, light versus dark, light versus dark. Okay. Literature is a system of signs. System of signs means a signifier, how we give a name to an object, signifier and signified, word and object, signified. Okay. Then meaning arises from relationship and patterns. What is the pattern of a language and how it relates to each other? What is the relationship between them? This is what in structuralism we study about. Concept you will find in this structuralism: binary oppositions, narratology, archetypes, and example you can understand the fairy tales follow a similar hero villain structures across culture. If we see the Barbie movie, if you see Cinderella, if there are any other fairy tales, there is a pattern followed by all the writers, whether it's in a movie or in a writing sense. They mention a hero who came and saved the heroine. So it is a structure that they follow. Important figures you can remember: Claude Levi-Strauss, Structural Anthropology; Roland Barthes, Mythologies; Zvetan Todorov, Algirds Grimus. One writer we will take and then have a separate class of these things. Remember, this is an introduction class. So by watching this video, you can yourself analyze and you can self find out that in literary theory, what you should have to prepare and how much. Okay. Now, another post-structuralism. In post-structuralism, that was focuses on the instability of meaning. Instability and stability, that means meaning is not a fixed, arguing that language and text are fluid, context dependent and contradictory. Over the time, how meaning changes with the perspective of different people. For example, in earlier age, earlier meaning of gay, the word gay, in Shakespeare's era, supposed to it the meaning of this word was happy, joy, cheerful. But in modern era, we all know that what is the meaning of gay. It refers to a person's sexual orientation, or you can simply say homosexual. So it simply means, in deconstruction lens, you will find out that the meaning of gay is not fixed. How over the time the meaning has changed. It shifts with time. So this is what it means, that the meaning is not fixed and not stable. Why? Because it shifts with time, culture, and social context. Okay. Key points you must remember: meaning is never final, it shifts constantly. Text contains contradictions and hidden assumptions. It emphasizes reader interpretation and power relations. Okay. The example I just gave you, good versus evil and light versus dark. So this is what binary opposition means. And the key writers of this age, you remember: Jacques Derrida, of grammatology work, deconstruction and instability of meaning. This is what he has mentioned. Roland Barthes, death of the author, 1967. Meaning is created by the reader. Once the work is finished by the writer, return work is done by the writer. Now the writer's work is finished now, and it's up to the reader that how he interprets the meaning. He is the reader and he is the interpreter. So there is nothing to do with the author. Michel Foucault, Discipline and Punish 1975, he gave us concept of power and knowledge, shape text. And what is an author? The work 1969. And in this post-structuralism, you will find the key terms trace, difference, aporia, and decentering. Okay. Now let's move on to the Marxism. Marxism, you all know how it started, and it is related with the Karl Marx. Karl Marx. So very important. Earlier, Karl Marx theories was political, but how this thing entered into a literature, because in literature we also study about class, right? Richness, rich, poor. So all these things we will find in the perspective of Karl Marx. So that is how in Marxism theory, if you will going to study, you will find out that Marxism examines literature in literature to class, economies, and social power structures. Class and economic, Pride and Prejudice work, you will find how economically everything is represented by Jane Austen. Okay, so this thing started in social inequalities, literature seen as reflecting or challenging dominant ideologies. And who are the neo-Marxists on? How neo-Marxists turn from economic determinism to ideology. Economic determinism, class, power, it was the concept of Karl Marx, but there were few Marxism, the literary theorists, who turned them into an ideology. Ideology, that means everything should stand as an abstract, the idea based, abstract form. Karl Marx talked about the materialist, the physical form. Karl Marx, how he has defined a class struggle of the people, how this divides society mainly in two parts, mainly uh, one second, mainly in two parts, and that two parts we stand here as the bourgeois and the proletariat. Bourgeois, it refers to the ruling class who own the means of production, the way we have factories, land, and capital, the capitalist society. And the proletariat, the working class, who do not own anything, but they are the servant, they are the labor. So this is what Karl Marx thought, that Karl Marx believed that human society is not shaped by ideas or moral first, but by material conditions. And that material conditions, he talked about bourgeois and proletariat, factories, land, capital, and the working class, ruling class and working class. So there he find that there is an inequalities that should not have actually. Okay. And in the other hand, I just here mentioned ideology. So ideology, it was the term that refers to how later Marxist thinkers redefined and expanded the idea of ideology. So in Marxism, the two things you have to remember: materialistic condition, materialistic or physical way, that is related. You can simply relate with Karl Marx. And other hand, how neo-Marxist turned his idea into an ideology. Okay, ideology, instead of seeing it only as false, they saw it as a system that shapes reality itself. Ideology in the sense that you have political power, you have thinking, you behave, and even you have desire. So this is what everything turned into an abstract manner, and we know them as an ideology. Okay, ideology. Don't worry, we will have a separate class on Karl Marx, Marxism, and the neo-Marxist also. So remember, this is the introduction class. So in Marxism, 1960s onwards, key points you will find: it analyzes class struggle in text. Literature can reinforce or critique ideology, and it also focuses on material conditions, power, and oppression. Okay, so these were the key points. Example here, Charles Dickens' novel highlight economic inequality and injustice in all his work. Most of his work you will find economic inequality, economic problem, economically how the character faces or injustice. Important figures of post-structuralism, we have Karl Marx, first work, Communist Manifesto, which was which was combinedly written by Frederick Engels. Okay, 1848, who was a German philosopher. Then Louis Althusser, ideology and ideological state apparatus is important, everybody. Ideology in literature, he was. Terry Eagleton, Marxism in literary criticism, and the connection of literature to social, political, and structure. The concept you will find in Marxism: ideology, cultural materialism, historicity, and class struggle. Okay. Now, another one we have psychoanalytic theory. Psychoanalytic theory, which was 1950s. So psychoanalytic theory, it is related with the psychology, your mind, character's mind. It interprets text through the unconscious mind, exploring desires, fears, and repressed memories. Why it started? It started by Freud and Jacques Lacan, who are aiming to understand psychological dimensions of a literature. For example, the character's mind, what's going on, Hamlet's ideology to be or not to be, what is the situation we have seen. In then similarly, Jane Eyre, we have Bertha Mason, what is the condition of his mentality. So here we will analyze those with the by using psychoanalytic theory. Okay. The key points you have to remember in this: characters and symbols reveal hidden fears and desires, and it also explores ID, ego, superego, and symbolic. The key members of the psychoanalytic theory, we have Simon Freud, the interpretation of dreams. This is very, very important work you must not miss. Unconscious desire and symbolism he has talked about in this work. Jacques Lacan and Eclipse, 1966. Language structures the unconscious, and you will find the mirror stage, the real, the symbolic, and the imaginary concept in this work by Jacques Lacan. Now, another one we have feminist theory, 1960s. Feminist theory, when we talked about gender and patriarchy system in our society. So feminist theory examines literature for the gender representation and women's voices and patriarchy. You know, now in earlier era, classical age, not classical age specifically, when the everything was in on at peak, the male writers, the society, the literature was dominated by male writers. So later and slowly, the female writers started raising the voice, and we have gynocriticism by Ellen Sholter, then Virginia Woolf, when they started talking about that there should be the separate room in the sense that women should also have the right to write freely, write with liberty. Whether it's they should have been provided with the financial stability, they should have been provided with um, their own thinking, their perspective should be respected by the male dominant person, male society. Instead, there was a dominance of the male writers. So after that, the female writers starting raising their voice to face them. So it started with the response to male dominant literature aimed to highlight gender inequalities and women's creative contributions in the literature. And there is a feminism, waves of feminism. I will teach you with the way with my notes that I have prepared. So it is incomplete here. Sorry, I forgot to add. The key points in feminist theory you have to remember: it challenges gender bias, examines women's roles, creativity, and oppression, and it also connects to queer theory in modern discussion. Examples you can understand: Jane Eyre analyzed to show Bertha Mason as patriarchal oppression. Okay. And the important figures you must not forget, you can prepare. Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own, 1929 essay. In this, she talked about freedom and space for women writers. Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex, 1949. Second sex here, talking about the female. The first is male and the second is a female. So women as the other. Very, very important this concept. Ellen Sholter, A Literature of Their Own, 1977. Study of women writers. And gynocriticism, you can memorize. Gilbert and Goober, The Mad Women in the Attic, 1979, Female Rebellion, they talked about. Judith Butler, Gender Trouble, 1990, Gender as Performance, and Luz Irigaray, Helen Zios, A Creature Feminine. These you can If you have analyzed the PYQs, previous year question papers of any year, you will definitely find one of these concept. Okay, worker or writers. So it's very important. Do not miss everybody. If you are preparing, if you are doing self-study, that is also good for you. If you're watching somebody's video, that is also helpful. But the one thing I keep telling you is revising and self-studying is must. You cannot depend on anybody that they will come and teach you and explain you. But now it's your mind. You are a grown up. You have your thinking ability to analyze everything if you are doing self-study. I find this thing best because since my school time now I have been dependent on the self-study because there was no situation and there was no condition at my home where I can study with my brothers, my siblings. So always I have studied alone. That's why I do self-study and believe and always got first division by doing self-study. Okay. So this is my suggestion to all of you. You know, you should inspire, you heard something, you feel inspired, your life should be inspired by hearing somebody's story. So if there is somebody with you, whether your sibling, your friends, it's good for you. You know, the worst thing was with me that my friend's house was also so far that I could not go with them, go at their places to study or to ask anything. So you can understand what was the conditions. And today everything is available. The facilities or if each type, I still see what is the level of education in India today. Okay, now let's move to the next. Another one we have post-colonial theory. 1970s till present time, post-colonial theories analyzes literature from colonized countries. For example, colonized countries, we have been colonized by Britishers. So, in post-colonial theory, if there is something mentioned, you can simply get back to those era where a country has been colonized by some other countries and how were the situations at that time and were those conditions faced by the people. We will analyze everything on basis of that colonized situation. Okay, so this is what it means. It focuses on identity, culture, power, and after when everyone was colonized, no one has their own identity, no one has their own culture, and no one has a power. Only the ruling people, only the one who have power, dominate or torture them. So all these things disappear somewhere. So after colonization, colonized countries, we analyze the literature from post-colonial theory perspective. Why it started? Post-World War II and decolonization led scholars to re-examine colonial narratives and Western dominance. Okay? It focuses on power, identity, resistance, hybridity in post-colonial societies. Key points you must remember. It examines colonial impact. What is happening? It examines colonial impact on culture and literature. Also, it highlights marginalized and perspectives and it explores identity, hybridity, and resistance. Okay, so this is what post-colonial theory. Post means after, later. Example, Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. In this work, he challenges colonial narratives with through all the characters. If you have this work is very very important and also its series. Important figures, Edward said in Orientalism, Homi ke bhava, mimicry, hybridity, ambivalence. Ambivalence was the matching question in 2023 December. Gayatri Chakravarti's 5 hybridity is also there, mimicry, so you know. Gayatri Chakravarti's 5 subaltern studies, Can the Subaltern Speak is a very important work, so must not miss. Othering, diaspora, nation, and neocolonialism. This thing you will find in post-colonial theory. Another one we have reader response theory. I hope this video you will find helpful and you will get many things clear. And specifically, let me tell you again that what is the difference between literary theory, literary criticism, and literary terms. You will definitely get your answer and everything is clear to you if you will watch the video. Just I uploaded on Sunday and it's It's a short 14 minutes video you can watch. So reader response theory meaning is created by the reader, not solely contained in the text. Reader is the interpreter of the text. Reader is the creator of the meaning of the text. Why it started? It started to reaction against a text-centered approach, text-centered approach, like new criticism, in which the new critics talked about that a reader should focus on close reading, emphasizes in interaction between text and reader. Okay, so here the focus will be the reader's role in creating meaning by taking a close read. Meaning emerges from readers' interpretation, and different readers may see different meanings in the same text. Okay. Here, example, Hamlet's indecision is understood differently by different writers. T.S. Eliot saw it differently. Samuel Johnson saw it differently. So everyone uses their own theories to analyze Hamlet's decision. Okay. Important figures in this we have Stanley Fish, interpretive communities, Wolfgang Iser, the implied reader, reader completes the text, Hans Robert Joss, reception theory, historical perspective of readers, key concept you will find in this implied reader, indeterminacy and reception. Okay. My English is easy to understand. I do not exaggerate or I do not make you feel that I'm using some other's accent, but it's a fully Indian accent and using British English. So I hope you all do understand. Do not demand or do not hope that English you should understand. You should study in Hindi. No, just discard those thinking, everybody. I know we all are living in India. We all are Indian, and in Hindi is our mother tongue. Everybody knows that. But we are now here. Hindi we all know very well. But now here we are studying literature, and that is English literature. Similarly, if we study Hindi, so I told you, I should have tell you that your focus should be on understanding the word and Hindi, understanding all the difficult words of Hindi. Why would I suggest you to use English while studying Hindi? So similarly, while understanding or while studying English now, I keep suggesting you. So please do study, do analyze everything. Keep talking to yourself. It's easy to English. Okay. Another one we have new historicism, which is cultural materialism 1980s. So new historicism views literature not in isolation, sole, single, individual, alone, but as a part of its historical and cultural context. That means literature has been derived from the very beginning. It is not a soul, it is not isolated, but it is a part of a historical context. You cannot discard this thing. You cannot discard this fact that literature was isolated. It has no root. It analyzes how power, politics, and society shape text and how text influences society in return. It is highlighted how power, politics, and society first shape text, then shape text in the sense we somehow depict our society in the work, right? Like we will go in the Elizabethan era, Renaissance age, neoclassical age. Everybody was depicting, or modernist age specifically, or the postmodernist age. All the writers were talking about the people's mentality, the people's condition, the society, the culture that was happening, that was prevailing during that specific time. So this is what means how people, politics, society, culture, everything shape text. And then these text, when it's written and shaped by the societies, how it return to society and influence that there should be any change. For example, movies impact people said now. People keep telling you that this movie is not good for society, so it should be banned. This is what it means, okay? This started in the emergence of response to text-centered approach like new criticism that was emphasizing that understanding literature requires looking at historical documents, culture, and social forces. Okay. Key points: text are cultural artifacts influenced by their historical moment. It examines power dynamics in literature and society, and it connects literature with non-literary texts like the laws, diaries, political documents. Okay. Then, sorry, Important figures we will find in New Historicism. Stephen Greenblatt, who was the founder of New Historicism and who studies Renaissance text in cultural context. He studied Renaissance text in cultural manner, cultural context. Literature embedded in historical power. So he gave Raymond Williams, cultural materialism. He focuses on literature and society, including class and ideology. Key word concept you will find subversion and containment, cultural text, and ideology. Okay. Now, another one we have queer theory, very, very important, must not miss everyone. Queer theory explores gender. One second is on. Okay. So, queer theory explores gender, sexual identities, questioning binary norms, and heteronormativity. It's important. Queer theory is very, very important, everybody. It started to build on feminist theory when we're talking about the gender. So in this specific thing, you have to remember the heteronormativity responding to cultural marginalization of LGBTQ identities. You will find the focus of queer theory is deconstruction of heteronormativity. That's the way I gave you the example of gay. Okay. Key points you have to remember, it challenges binary thinking about gender and sexuality. The people has two different perspectives now. Somebody support and somebody oppose. So that is the binary, opposite thinking. It reveals hidden or marginalized identities. Okay. Important figures, Judith Butler, Gender Trouble Work, Gender as Performance, she talked about Eo Kosofsky Sedgwick, Epistemology of the Clauses, 1919, Hidden Sexualities. The key concept, performativity, gender performativity, binary opposition, and non-normativity, and also heteronormativity. Do remember. Now, another term, eco-criticism. Eco-criticism. In this, we study about the relationship between literature and environment. For example, how climate change, how weather changes, what is the effect on society, on world. This is what we study in eco-criticism. So it is the relationship between literature and the environment. It was the response to ecological concerns. The people, the writer who talked in eco criticism, it was actually a concern by them that there should be the balance between the environment and literature. Climate change, they talk about, and nature representation, how you are presenting. Emerging interdisciplinary field, okay? Interdisciplinary field, eco criticism, nature, environment, and anthropology. Also, disability studies, that representation of disability and digital humanities literature in the digital age. Important figures of eco-criticism, Cheryl Blotfield, who was a pioneer of eco-criticism, and Lawrence Boyle focuses on literature and ecological awareness. So ecological concept is now appearing frequently in the exam, so you cannot miss this point, okay? Another one we have new criticism. New criticism. New criticism. I gave you the example. So new criticism, new critics, what does it mean? So it's focused on the text itself. Throughout the videos I was talking about the close reading, reader should, now reader should focus on the having a close reading, focus on the text only. So it is a text itself is enough to define the meaning to the reader. Okay. It simply means what is my intention, what I'm thinking. If the work is written by Shakespeare, so I know what the Shakespeare was thinking, what was his perspective, and what the style he was writing in his work, he was using in his work. So I will quickly get back and analyze and think in my mind that this was the work by Shakespeare. So quickly I will find out the meaning. But what if I do not have anything about the work, whether it's background, whether it's writer's name, whether it's the intention of the writer, whether it's, if I have discarded my intention also, reader's intention, writer's intention, and the reader's intention, okay, intention, writer's intention, reader's intention. So I do not have anything now, only I am showing you this line only. And now I will tell you that to find out the meaning by reading this text. I won't provide you anything. So how you will analyze, how you will find, okay? By taking a close reading and finding a meaning, it simply means you will need to find the style of the work, structure of the work. People must be thinking what we have to find: the style of the work, structure of the work, if there is a use of terms, if there is a use of theories, and if the writer, if the work has been criticized by any other writers. So everything you have to find out by taking a close reading, by having a close reading of the text. Okay, there will be nothing. So this is what the perception, or this is what the point of new criticism writers they talked about. Meaning is derived from a close reading of the text, ignoring the author's biography, historical context, or reader's response. Here it means intention. This idea was developed as a response to overly historical or biographical approaches. It aims to treat literature scientifically, biographical, historical, in the sense, Samuel Johnson, he wrote the lives of, he used the biographies a lot. So you can take the example, the life of 52 poets he wrote. In this work, he analyzes and talked about the life of the worker, life of the writers. Sorry, life of the writers. So he was analyzing everything of the writer's life by taking their background. So in new criticism, this thing was discarded. No need to focus on historical background, biographical background, writer's intention, reader's intention, but there will be the text only, and you will find out the meaning. It aimed to treat literature scientifically, focusing on structure, imagery, and literary devices. Okay, I just told you. Key points: it focuses on literariness, paradox, irony, and ambiguity. Important, everybody. Close reading of text to find the unity and meaning. For example, you analyze a poem line by line to uncover themes, literary techniques without considering the poet's life. And the major contributors, figures: John Crow Ransom, J.C. Ransom, The New Criticism, 1941. It was actually an essay that emerged as a part of New Criticism. We find this word new criticism. Clint Brooks, The Well-Wrought On, very, very important work. W.K. Wimsett and M.C. Beardsley, Intentional Fallacy and Affective Fallacy, they both talked about. Another one we have Russian formalism, everybody. Russian formalism, what does it mean? Russian formalism, not the writers of any other countries, but the writers, the theorists, we will find specifically from the Russia. So what they talked about, Russian formalism focused on what makes a text literary, its devices, techniques, and language, rather than its social or a moral content. It was started to as a reaction to moralistic and historical approaches to literature, emphasizing literature as an autonomous art with unique methods and structures. Okay, so you will find key points that the literature makes ordinary things seem new and meaningful. Example, you can take Defamiliarization by Victor Shklovsky. It also emphasizes form over content, studies devices like plot, which is fabula, and Suzette, that is narrative and sound. Influence later theories like structuralism and new criticism. Okay, so obviously this should be appeared before the new criticism. You can describe a clock as a circle of numbers chasing each other. So why we see this that there is a circle and there is a number written, and there is a needle for defining time, but there is another people who will watch them, who will observe them in other sense. That is what it makes the reader see a familiar object in a new way. That means it is not only the clock that telling you the time, but it could be something else. Okay. Important key figures you can understand, you can remember. Victor Shklovsky, Art as Technique, 1917, he introduced defamiliarization. Then Roman Jacobson, linguistic-based literary analysis, studied poetic functions of language. Boris Ekaimbaum, who focuses on literary history and narrative techniques. And the key concept you will find defamiliarization, also known as Austrian, which makes familiar things appear strange to the reader, forcing them to notice and think about that. Okay, so I hope you have understood what is literary theory now. Here you can summarize all of the literary theories part. It was happened our post-World War II literary theory focuses on language, identity, power, society, and environment. Each theory offers a different lens: structural, post-structural, Marxist, psychoanalytic, reader response, feminist, post-colonial, queer, and eco-critical theory. Okay. These theories help us ask deeper questions, understand multiple perspectives, and analyze text beyond plot or just aesthetics. Aestheticism is the theory, So aestheticism, earlier there are a lot of literary theories part A I have already, I think, uploaded by mentioning literary theories, the words that used in the work. And this was the introduction. We were majorly focusing on post World War. Okay, post World War II. Everything was used in this video was post World War II. This is the unit 9. You remember unit 9. So how do you like the session? If any of you have any doubt regarding anything, you can simply leave your comment. Okay, you can ask. You can join the Telegram channel where we discuss, we ask, and do self-study, everybody. Now there is no time. October is already there, and now November we left. December there is also. NTA has not released the form yet, so still whether they will release later, but it's your duty, it's your responsibility to keep preparing. Okay, keep practicing, keep preparing, because you have paper 1 and paper 2 both. And for paper 1 and paper 2, I have uploaded the what would be the key strategy, what would be the book suggestions, everything I have given you. You can watch that video also, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Do take care of yourself. Bye bye.